The conference room at Redgate Solutions was dead silent. Everyone stared at me like I'd just admitted to sinking the company. Marcus's voice sliced through the tension like a blade. It was her oversight. That's why we lost the Carrington contract. Gasps rippled around the walnut table. My chest burned as shame crept up my neck. The 10 people seated around me, people I'd collaborated with for years, looked like they believed him. Their eyes reflected disappointment, even pity. Sloane fumbled the follow-through. Marcus continued his tone, smooth rehearsed. There's a clear pattern of poor communication under her leadership. My hand trembled as I held my pen. Was this real? After all the weekends I gave up the birthdays, I missed the results I delivered. He was making me the scapegoat for his own failure. Mr. Lennox, our CEO, sighed heavily. This is unfortunate, Sloane. Carrington brought in nearly $1.7 million last year. I wanted to stand and shout the truth. To tell them Marcus ignored my warnings that I corrected his flawed pitch deck days before the meeting. But I didn't. I sat still watching 6 years of work unravel in seconds. My name is Sloane Mercer. I'm 38 years old. Until this morning, I believed Redgate was finally seeing my value. I joined back in 2018, starting as a mid-level strategist in Chicago. While others grabbed drinks after work, I fine-tuned data models. While they networked, I quietly refined campaigns that exceeded benchmarks. I didn't crave recognition. I believed the results would speak for me. My retention rate was the highest in our division. I was the silent pillar holding up our performance metrics. But that pillar had been holding up a fraud. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. Marcus always hijacked meetings, twisted credit, rerouted applause. He was charming in the way corporate climbers often are. Shiny suit, perfect hair, always ready with a joke. And I kept telling myself none of it mattered as long as the team succeeded, that numbers would shield me. But in corporate America, perception outpaces truth. And the man I helped succeed was now cutting me loose just to stay afloat himself. And I wasn't going to let that stand. The work itself had always been enough. I believed in what I was building campaigns with integrity data that told the truth strategy that actually worked. I thought I was part of something bigger than myself. How naive I was. In corporate America, perception eats reality for breakfast. And Marcus Langford. He was a master of it. Marcus was everything I wasn't. Loud, polished, effortlessly charming. He had a way of making every person in the room feel like they mattered, even when they didn't. Clients adored him. Executives hung on his every word. Even our receptionist blushed when he walked by. He wore tailored suits, drove a black Porsche, and always had a fresh designer watch. His office looked like a Fortune 500 showroom photos, with CEO shelves lined with marketing awards I'd quietly won for him. But I saw what no one else did. I watched him freeze when clients asked for numbers. I noticed how he dodged technical discussions and redirected every detailed question back to vague promises. I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes when a VP challenged his math. Marcus could sell sand to a desert, but he couldn't build a strategy to save his life. That's where I came in the quiet mind behind the curtain. For 3 years, we had this unspoken arrangement. He dazzled. I delivered. He stood in the spotlight while I worked in the shadows. It worked until it didn't. 3 weeks before the Carrington disaster, I found a catastrophic error in the financial projections Marcus had created for their expansion plan. I was running a late-night quality check on a Friday when I saw it. The numbers weren't just wrong, they were dangerous. I called him immediately. "Marcus, we've got a serious issue," I said, walking him through the flaws line by line. He chuckled. "Relax, Sloane. You're overthinking it. I'll smooth it over during the pitch." You can't smooth over a $400,000 forecasting error. Confidence sells. Perfection's optional. I didn't sleep that weekend. I rebuilt the deck from scratch, corrected every line, sent it with notes. He never replied. And Monday. He used his original version anyway. Monday morning, Marcus walked into the Carrington pitch with the same flawed presentation I'd already warned him about. That was my first real sign things were about to spiral. I stood in the back corner of the conference room, watching him smile and deliver projections that would wreck Carrington's Q2 if implemented. When Mr. Carrington asked for specifics on ROI metrics, Marcus offered vague generalities. "These projections feel aggressive," Mr. Carrington said, his jaw tightening. Marcus grinned. "You've got to think big to win big right-wrong answer." Mr. Carrington's expression turned cold. His CFO started taking furious notes. "I wished I could sink into the floor." 2 days later, Carrington Group pulled out of the contract entirely. Their exit letter cited poor strategy and unrealistic financial modeling. The fallout was instant. We took a direct hit to quarterly revenue projections. Within hours, Marcus was already rewriting the story. In hushed conversations and casual updates, he hinted at breakdowns in communication, missed deliverables, dropped deadlines. He never mentioned that I'd flagged the error. Never told anyone I'd rebuilt the pitch deck. He erased the part where I tried to save us. According to him, I was the one who let Carrington down. I was the weak link. That night, I walked home numb. 6 years of consistent performance erased by one man's arrogance. But I wasn't broken, not yet. I didn't cry. I didn't storm into his office demanding accountability. I did something far more dangerous. I started building a case. Every email, every calendar entry, every meeting transcript. I documented everything legally, methodically. I created a locked folder on my personal drive, encrypted it, backed it up to multiple cloud accounts. Every file was tagged by date, project, and impact level. It was the kind of meticulous cataloging I'd mastered as a strategist. And slowly, I converted my anger into precision. Every snide comment, every stolen win, every time Marcus redirected praise became fuel. He thought he'd silenced me. He had no idea what kind of storm he'd just unleashed. He had no idea he'd awakened something far more dangerous than anger. He'd awakened my strategic mind. My mother passed when I was 23, but her voice still guides me through every storm. She worked 30 years at a textile plant outside Milwaukee, starting on the floor and rising to become a union rep. She knew how to fight men in power who thought loyalty made you disposable. "You don't go loud first, Sloane," she used to say. "Loud is what desperate people do. Smart people wait, let them hang themselves. You just pass them the rope." She taught me how to endure, how to smile when you're underestimated, how to document everything while playing the long game. She went toe-to-toe with supervisors who stole her ideas and never blinked. She organized 3 strikes, exposed safety violations, and saved dozens of lives. Her legacy wasn't just better working conditions. It was a mindset. If you found power in this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button because the next chapter, it's where everything turns. Real power doesn't sit in the corner office. It lives in preparation, patience, and precision. As I sat in my 1-bedroom apartment, organizing files on Marcus, I could almost hear her whispering, "Now you're thinking like a fighter." That night, while digging through archived project folders, I stumbled across something that stopped me cold, a pattern of double billing. Over 18 months, Marcus's team had been inflating hours, charging for services never rendered and recycling deliverables under different invoice codes. I found email threads between Marcus and the CFO openly discussing margin optimization and creative billing frameworks. They weren't just careless, they were stealing. And because I'd led some of those projects, my name, my credentials, and my signature were on reports used to justify those fraudulent charges. This wasn't just about Carrington anymore. This was organized fraud, possibly in the millions. These weren't just invoices. They were trust being bled dry behind polished PowerPoints. And the people we were robbing, they weren't just clients. They were companies who believed in us. And now, Marcus had made me an unwitting accomplice. Now it made sense. Marcus wasn't just trying to blame me, he was trying to bury me. That weekend, I dove into research on whistleblower protections under both Illinois and federal law. To my surprise, the legal safeguards were far stronger than I expected, especially in financial fraud cases. Companies that retaliated against whistleblowers faced severe penalties. Employees who reported misconduct were protected from termination, demotion, and harassment. In some cases, they were even entitled to compensation. Our own HR manual had an entire section on ethical reporting, including a clause stating that all credible allegations had to be investigated without bias. And most importantly, no adverse action could be taken against someone who filed in good faith. I wasn't just a disgruntled employee anymore. I was a documented witness to a pattern of corporate fraud. Marcus had tried to end my career to cover his tracks. But ironically, those same tracks could now expose him and protect me. I created a new encrypted folder on my drive labeled whistleblower documentation. Into it went everything. Every bloated invoice, every internal email referencing billing games, every spreadsheet with phantom fees and recycled services. By Sunday night, I had enough evidence to launch an audit or spark a federal investigation. The only question left was when. On Monday morning, Marcus strolled into the office with a bounce in his step. He must have spent the weekend crafting his next move. In our team meeting, he announced with a polished smile that I'd be transitioning into new responsibilities as part of a broader departmental realignment. "We want to help Sloane find her best fit," he said smoothly. "Sometimes change helps people grow." I nodded. "I appreciate the opportunity," I replied calmly. He smiled wider. He thought I was beaten, maybe even thankful. The others sat frozen, too scared to challenge the obvious demotion. After the meeting, Marcus lingered at my desk. "No hard feelings, right?" he asked. "None at all," I said, organizing my files with steady hands. He had no clue that those files held every piece of legal evidence I'd need. And worse, he'd stopped watching me. That was his final mistake. I was already 3 steps ahead. 2 weeks later, Marcus landed a potential $3 million account with Meridian Systems, a rising star in healthcare tech. He beamed as he pitched it to the team. "This is it," he said. "This deal could solidify our spot at the top and mine." What he didn't say, his entire strategy deck was built on frameworks I had developed. Every chart, every flow model, every line of logic, I recognized it all. He'd simply swapped out company names and adjusted the buzzwords. But he still needed one thing: current data. That's where I saw my opening. He asked me to pull the latest industry reports. I smiled and agreed, then sent him metrics that were 6 months old. Not technically wrong, but in a volatile market like healthcare tech, dangerously outdated. He didn't double-check a thing. Why would he? I'd never given him reason to doubt me before. He built the entire financial model around that stale data. On paper, it looked flawless. But anyone familiar with current trends would spot the cracks in minutes. I almost wished I could have been in the room when the questions started flying. While Marcus rehearsed his pitch, I was quietly meeting with recruiters. News about the Carrington debacle had gotten around, but to my surprise, the industry didn't view me as damaged, just misused. Amanda Carlisle from Rivet Agency reached out first. She'd seen my work at a conference years ago and still remembered it. "People talk," she said, during coffee. "Everyone knows Marcus Langford takes credit for other people's ideas. We've just been waiting for him to trip over himself." I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was stunned. The industry had seen it too. "I'm not quite ready to leave," I said carefully. "But I may bring something valuable when I do." Amanda smiled. "What kind of valuable?" I leaned in. "Let's just say I keep good records." She nodded slowly, already understanding. That weekend, I compiled what I called my leverage folder, a clean, legal, detailed archive of everything I'd uncovered. Every invoice, every stolen slide, every signature Marcus never earned. It was more than proof. It was protection and power. The folder was airtight. It contained recordings where legally permitted, along with internal emails outlining billing manipulation, detailed project timelines, and hard proof of my contributions. It showed how Marcus had systematically redirected credit away from me to elevate himself. I included the corrected Carrington pitch with metadata, proving I built it and when I'd sent it. I documented every red flag I raised, every ignored warning, and every decision he made that contradicted my professional input. But most importantly, I cataloged the fraud. Inflated invoices, phantom service charges, duplicate billing, and email chains between Marcus and the CFO about margin optimization. This had moved well beyond office politics. This was evidence of corporate-level misconduct. I encrypted the folder and uploaded it to a secure cloud link with time-stamped access logs. If anything happened to me, if I was fired, if my access was revoked, it would trigger an automatic release to the board regulators and key clients. My insurance policy was ready. That Monday, HR called me in. Patricia, the department head, looked uneasy as she slid a thick folder across the table. "We're realigning your responsibilities," she said, based on recent performance concerns. It was a demotion disguised as a development plan. My client portfolio was gutted. Budget authority revoked. I was being stripped of everything that made my role impactful. "This isn't punitive," Patricia said gently. "We just want to give you time to rebuild your confidence." I smiled, thanked her, signed without protest. Then I returned to my desk and immediately sent myself a time-stamped email documenting every word of the meeting, names, quotes, and my professional interpretation of their real motive. HR thought they were building a paper trail to justify my exit. They didn't realize I was building one too. Only mine led straight to truth. Every meeting, every file, every tactic, all now part of a growing legal archive. The following week, Marcus invited me to observe his pitch to Meridian Systems. "You might learn something," he said smugly. I nodded politely. He thought this was about mentorship, but I knew exactly what this was: a front-row seat to his own collapse. But I had my own plan. Before the pitch, I quietly copied Marcus's presentation deck and took detailed notes during the meeting. Every inflated claim, every projection pulled from thin air, every shiny promise with no data to support it. At first, the Meridian Systems execs seemed impressed. But I caught the subtle shifts: the CTO's raised eyebrow, the frown from their finance lead, when Marcus cited market data that was clearly outdated. When asked about recent changes in federal healthcare funding, Marcus fumbled. "We'll follow up with a deeper dive," he said smoothly. After the meeting, I sent an anonymous message to Meridian's procurement team. "Friendly advice, phrased professionally. Be sure to request full back-end data before moving forward." 2 days later, Marcus was panicking, trying to find fresh market research to justify his original projections. But it didn't exist. The market had shifted. His numbers had no foundation. Meanwhile, I was quietly building something real. Over lunch breaks and late nights, I met with Amanda from Rivet Agency and 2 former colleagues who had also left Redgate under questionable circumstances. Tom Walsh, our former VP of Strategy, had quit 2 years ago in frustration. Maria Santos, a brilliant creative director, left after discovering Marcus had billed clients for her work while she was on unpaid maternity leave. Together, we had decades of experience, deep client trust, and a shared mission: rebuild marketing from the inside out. Transparent, ethical, real. We named it Strategic Partners Collective, a company rooted in partnership, not power plays. By the time Marcus realized what we were doing, our paperwork was filed, and our first outreach emails were already landing in inboxes. And it was all legal. We weren't poaching clients. We were offering something better. A week before Marcus's follow-up call with Meridian, I sent another anonymous suggestion request: specific performance metrics tied to current data. They did. On the call, Marcus stumbled through half answers, scrambling to reconcile new numbers with old promises. I wasn't in the room, but the fallout echoed down every hallway. He'd built his empire on charm. Now the cracks were starting to show. Marcus's revised numbers completely contradicted his original pitch. The Meridian executives thanked him politely and said they'd follow up. 3 days later, they announced they were exploring other vendors. Marcus was livid but clueless as to why his guaranteed deal had suddenly vanished. Around the office, whispers started circulating. Clients were raising concerns about billing transparency and project delays. And the board. They were quietly asking questions about recent account losses, but Marcus didn't notice the shift. Instead of reevaluating, he doubled down. He called an all-hands meeting to unveil his Grand Vision 2025 strategic plan, a bloated attempt to paint himself as the company's future. I sat quietly in the back row phone, recording in my lap. He strutted to the front of the conference room full of bravado and began spouting buzzwords. Synergy, premium, tiering, client optimization without a single measurable target. What he didn't realize was that 3 board members were also in the room. They weren't clapping. They were taking notes. For years, Marcus had relied on flash over substance. But now, people were finally seeing through it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and finished my resignation letter. Calm, clear, devastating. 3 paragraphs. My appreciation for the opportunity. A brief summary of my contributions. My intention to pursue new challenges. But that letter had an attachment. 47 pages of evidence. Billing fraud. Systematic credit theft. Financial manipulation. Ethics violations. Each claim backed by emails, documents, recordings, and timestamps. At the end was my formal whistleblower complaint filed with both the State Regulatory Board and Redgate's own executive committee. I reviewed it 3 times. Dates, quotes, legal citations. This wasn't just a resignation, it was a detonator. One designed to end Marcus's career while safeguarding mine. But I didn't send it yet. Timing mattered, so I saved the email as a draft. Then I went to bed knowing tomorrow would shift everything. And right on cue, Marcus made his mistake. The next morning, during a team Slack thread on campaign strategy, he publicly mocked one of my ideas in front of the entire department. That was the last thread he'd ever pull. Marcus didn't just criticize my idea, he mocked it. In a public team Slack thread, he called my strategy basic and said I lacked the sophistication for executive-level thinking. Within minutes, screenshots landed in my inbox. "You deserve better than this," one colleague wrote. "This is unacceptable," said another. I stared at the thread, feeling the heat in my chest. This wasn't feedback. It was character assassination designed to finish what he started, burying my credibility. That's when I knew. It was time. I'd given him chances to change, to own his mistakes, to show even the most basic respect. But he chose war, and I was ready. I opened my laptop, pulled up the draft email, and hovered over send. But first, I scheduled a meeting Friday 3 p.m. with Marcus himself. He accepted instantly, probably assuming I'd come crawling back or folding quietly. He was half right. When I entered his office, he leaned back in his leather chair full of smug confidence. "So, Sloane, what can I do for you?" "I'm here to resign," I said calmly, placing a printed letter on his desk. His eyebrows lifted, but the smirk didn't move. "Well, probably for the best." "No hard feelings, right?" "Of course not," I replied. "I've learned a lot here. I think this change will benefit everyone." He nodded, already rewriting the narrative in his head. "You'll land on your feet. If you need a reference?" I smiled. "Thank you, Marcus. That's generous." As I turned to leave, he added, "You'll probably regret this. Good marketing jobs aren't easy to come by." I paused at the door. "Maybe," I said, "but I think you might regret some things first." Monday, 9 a.m. Sharp, I hit send. Subject line, resignation and formal complaint. Sloane Mercer. The email went to the CEO, Board of Directors, HR Legal, the CFO, and 3 of our largest clients impacted by Marcus's schemes. Within 30 minutes, my phone lit up. By the hour, Mark emergency meetings were underway. And Marcus. He had no idea what was coming. By lunchtime, external investigators had been contacted, and Marcus's access had been revoked. His computer was locked, and his badge deactivated. I watched from my apartment window as Redgate spiraled into crisis. Colleagues texted updates in real time, panicked leadership meetings, hushed conversations in the hallways, executives realizing just how deep the evidence ran. My whistleblower complaint triggered immediate legal protections and mandatory audits. The billing fraud alone demanded external review. The pattern of credit theft and internal retaliation added layers of liability. But the tipping point. The clients I'd contacted began demanding answers, some threatening legal action. By 2:30 p.m., Marcus's desk was cleared by security. His company car was repossessed. His access to all systems gone. By end of day Monday, Marcus Langford was no longer employed at Redgate Solutions. Tuesday morning, the board issued a public statement confirming a full investigation into serious financial and ethical misconduct. External auditors were brought in to comb through 3 years of billing. Key clients received personal apologies and promises of restitution. The company's legal team began calculating risk exposure. Meanwhile, I was sitting in a downtown cafe with Amanda and the founding team at Strategic Partners Collective. We had planned for this moment. Within 2 weeks, we secured 3 major contracts and had 6 more in the pipeline, mostly from clients fleeing Redgate. The local business journal published a front-page story about the marketing strategist who exposed industry-wide fraud. I was quoted saying, "Sometimes doing the right thing means taking personal risks, but integrity isn't optional." 1 month later, a recruiter called me. "I've got a client looking for a marketing director," he said. "Can you provide a reference for someone named Marcus Langford?" I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. 6 months in Strategic Partners Collective had grown to 12 full-time employees and signed a multi-year deal with the Regional Healthcare Consortium. I was named managing partner leading strategy across 4 states. Redgate, meanwhile, continued to unravel, 3 more executives, ousted clients, leaving weekly, and multiple lawsuits pending. But the real vindication, former coworkers reaching out to say, "I'm sorry I didn't speak up." And finally, "You were right all along." Clients I'd worked with in the past began reaching out specifically requesting Strategic Partners Collective because they trusted me. Word traveled quickly in our industry. Ethics-focused publications ran features on responsible consulting, and several cited the Redgate collapse as a case study in what happens when profits outrun principles. But the sweetest moment Meridian Systems, the client Marcus lost, came to us for a complete marketing transformation. They'd done their homework. They didn't just want an agency, they wanted me. During the kickoff call, their CEO said, "We dodged a bullet not signing with Redgate. We heard what happened. Your team's the one we trust." I just smiled, opened my laptop, and said, "Let's build something better." 2 years after my resignation, Marcus Langford resurfaced. But not with humility. Instead of owning his downfall, he launched a petty smear campaign. He spread rumors, twisted timelines, and implied sabotage. He posted anonymously on industry blogs alluding to espionage and betrayal. He even contacted old clients, spinning stories meant to cast doubt on my integrity. For months, I ignored him. I focused on our clients, our team, our growth. But then, he crossed a line. He sent forged documents, fabricated emails, and doctored slides to one of our largest clients, trying to make me look incompetent. That was it. I forwarded everything to our legal team. Within 24 hours, they issued cease and desist letters, along with a formal notice of intent to file for defamation and fraud. The response was swift and crushing. Marcus's last few industry connections turned cold. Word spread. Whatever bridges he hadn't burned, he torched with that stunt. His final attack became the nail in his professional coffin. And me? I didn't have to scream. I didn't have to retaliate. I just kept showing up with honesty, preparation, and quiet power. Some battles end with explosions. Others with a locked inbox and a quiet removal from the directory. Either way, the result was the same. Marcus Langford had played his final card. And he lost. If you've made it to the end of my story, thank you. Truly. I wasn't the loudest voice in the room. I wasn't the one shaking hands with CEOs or making headlines. I was the quiet strategist in the background, the one who showed up early, stayed late, and gave everything I had to the work. And for a long time, I thought that would be enough. That results would speak louder than politics. That integrity alone would carry me forward. But sometimes in the real world, that isn't how things play out. If this story struck a chord with you, if you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or thrown under the bus, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment. Share your story. Tell me what part of mine resonated with yours. Because I promise you're not alone. And if you're still in a toxic environment where someone else is taking credit for your work or silencing your voice, don't just get angry. Get smart. Document. Prepare. Know your rights. Know your value. And never confuse silence for weakness. Because the truth, real power isn't loud. It doesn't need attention. It moves with purpose, waits for the right moment, and acts with precision. That's how you reclaim your story. That's how you win quietly, strategically, completely. If you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, I'd love for you to subscribe. Your support helps more people find the courage to stand up, speak up, and protect what they've built. This wasn't just my story. It's one that plays out in boardrooms and break rooms every single day. Let's make sure no one walks through it alone. Thank you for listening.